There is a company that has sold more cars than anyone else on the planet. And for the last 5 years, while every headline was about Tesla, while every analyst was talking about BYD, this company said almost nothing. No flashy launches, no viral tweets, no CEO doing interviews every week. Just silence. And that silence made everyone comfortable. People started assuming Toyota was falling behind, that it had missed the EV wave, that the biggest car company in history was becoming irrelevant. But here is what nobody was paying attention to. Toyota was not sleeping. It was building, quietly filing patents, quietly running tests, quietly solving a problem that every single EV company in the world has failed to crack. And then, without warning, Toyota's CEO stood up and made one statement, one line. And that one line sent shockwaves through the entire auto industry. He said their solid-state battery could change the future of electric vehicles forever. Now, that sounds like a big corporate claim. Companies say things like that all the time. But Toyota does not. That is the difference. Toyota does not speak until it is ready to prove something. So the real question is not what Toyota announced. The real question is what it has been quietly perfecting for years while nobody was watching. To understand why Toyota's announcement matters, you first need to understand something most people never think about. Every electric vehicle on the road today, whether it costs $30,000 or $150,000, runs on the same basic technology. Lithium-ion batteries, the same kind of battery inside your phone. And here's the thing nobody in the EV industry likes to admit openly. That technology has a fundamental flaw. Inside every lithium-ion battery, there is a liquid, an electrolyte that carries energy from one side to the other. It works, but that liquid is also the source of almost every problem EV owners face. It heats up. It can leak. Under certain conditions, it catches fire. You have seen those headlines. An EV bursting into flames in a parking garage. A phone exploding on a nightstand. That is not a freak accident. That is the liquid doing what liquids do under stress. But fire risk is just the beginning. That liquid is also the reason charging takes so long. You can only push energy through it at a certain speed. Push too fast and you damage the battery. That is why, even with a so-called fast charger, you are still standing at a station for 30 to 45 minutes. Compare that to 5 minutes at a petrol pump, and then there is the problem nobody warns you about before you, by degradation. That liquid slowly eats away at the battery from the inside. Year 1, your car goes 400 kilometers on a charge. Year 3, maybe 320. Year 5, even less. And replacing that battery costs thousands. Sometimes more than the car is worth. So here's the picture nobody puts in the advertisements. You bought a futuristic car, but you are constantly calculating range, turning off the AC to save battery, planning every trip around charging stations, avoiding highways because you are not sure you will make it. That is not freedom, that is management. And this is exactly the gap Toyota has been staring at for years. Now here is where it gets interesting. What Toyota is working on is not a better version of the same battery. It is a completely different approach. They are removing the liquid entirely. Gone, in its place, a solid material. That is where the name comes from. Solid-state. Think about it like this. Imagine you have a bottle full of water, and you need to carry it across a rough road. The water sloshes around. It could spill. It could leak through a crack. Now replace that water with a solid block. Same bottle. Same size. But nothing moves inside anymore. Nothing leaks. Nothing spills. That is the core idea behind solid-state batteries. And this one change, removing the liquid, does not just fix one problem. It fixes 3 at the same time. First, safety. No liquid means drastically lower fire risk. The thing that makes lithium-ion batteries dangerous simply does not exist in this design. Second, charging speed. Energy moves through a solid electrolyte more efficiently. That means the battery can accept power much faster without getting damaged. We are talking about charging in minutes, not hours. And third, energy density. A solid-state battery can store significantly more energy in the same physical space, same size battery, but the car goes much, much farther. Now pause on that for a second, because this is not a small improvement. If these 3 things are true, then every major reason people hesitate to buy an EV disappears in one move. But this only matters once you understand the numbers. Toyota is actually claiming And that is where the story starts to get uncomfortable for every other company in the race. Here are the numbers. Toyota is talking about a range of 800 to 1,000 kilometers on a single charge. Let that land for a moment. The average EV today gives you somewhere between 350 and 500 kilometers under ideal conditions. In real life, with traffic and air conditioning in hills, that drops to 250 or 300. Toyota is claiming nearly triple that. In real-world terms, that means charging your car once and not thinking about it again for an entire week. Commuting, errands, school runs, weekend trips, all on one charge. No range anxiety, no detours to find a charger, no turning off the AC on a hot day to squeeze out another 20 kilometers. And then there is the charging speed claim. Toyota is suggesting that future solid-state batteries could charge in roughly 10 minutes, not 30. Not 45, 10. At that speed, charging an EV becomes no different from stopping for fuel. You pull in, you plug in, you grab a coffee, and you leave. The entire psychological barrier between petrol and electric disappears. But here's the part that does not get enough attention. Battery longevity. Toyota says this battery degrades much more slowly than lithium. The internal reactions are more controlled, less wear and tear over time. So the range you get in year 1 is close to the range you still get in year 5 or year 7. That changes the economics completely. Suddenly, an EV is not a depreciating gadget. It is a long-term investment. Now, if you are a Tesla and you built your entire brand on being the most advanced EV company in the world, these numbers are a direct challenge. If you are BYD and your advantage is affordability and scale, a battery that lasts longer and goes farther threatens your position from a completely different angle. The competition is no longer about who has the best software or the sleekest design. It is about who controls the best battery. And Toyota just signaled that it might be them. So if this battery is so revolutionary, why is it not in cars right now? This is the most important part of the entire story. And Toyota is completely honest about it. Making a solid-state battery in a lab is one thing. Producing millions of them with identical quality at a price people can afford is an entirely different problem. The materials are expensive. The manufacturing process is extremely precise. Even a tiny inconsistency in production can ruin an entire batch. And right now, the cost of producing these batteries at scale is simply too high for a mass-market vehicle. This is where most companies would either rush to launch an imperfect version or quietly shelve the project. Toyota is doing neither. It is doing something that almost no company in the tech world has the patience for anymore. It is waning, testing in extreme heat, testing in brutal cold, testing on terrible roads, testing over hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Not because it has to for regulations, but because Toyota knows something very important. In the EV world, if a battery fails after launch, it does not just damage one product. It damages the entire idea of electric vehicles for millions of potential buyers. That is why Toyota has not given a fixed launch date, and this is deliberate. Announcing a date creates pressure to hit that date, even if the product is not ready. Toyota would rather be late and right than early and wrong. And honestly, that approach is what makes the rest of the industry nervous. Because when Toyota finally does launch, it will not be a beta test. It will not be a limited experiment. It will be a finished product backed by years of silent, relentless preparation. Now zoom out, because if Toyota succeeds, the impact goes far beyond one company selling better cars. Think about what happens to the oil industry when EVs suddenly become genuinely convenient, not slightly better, not kind of competitive. Actually, fully convenient, no range anxiety, no long charging waits, no battery replacement costs after a few years. When that happens, the slow decline of fossil fuel demand accelerates, not overnight, but the direction becomes irreversible. Think about charging infrastructure. Right now, governments and companies are spending billions building charging networks, designed for cars that take 30 to 60 minutes to charge. If batteries start charging in 10 minutes, every station can serve 5 or 6 times more cars in the same day. The bottleneck disappears. Highways become e-friendly almost immediately. Think about affordability. Right now, EVs are largely a wealthy person's choice. The battery alone makes up 30 to 40% of the vehicle cost. But as solid-state production scales, costs come down. And when costs come down, EVs stop being a premium product and become a genuine option for the middle class, for taxi drivers, for delivery fleets, for public buses in cities that currently choke on diesel exhaust, and think about the global power shift.